Hi guys, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Pieter-Louis.
Welcome to our podcast, Legends and Lore A World Tour. So this is definitely the last time I'm asking Pieter-Louis what legends or folklore he wants me to research. Seriously. Imagine this. It's an eerie night. The darkness feels heavier than usual. So you turn on the extra lights to feel safer. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. You check the people and you see two kids, hoodies up, standing still, heads slightly lowered. You open the door just a crack and they ask in a voice that's too calm, too rehearsed, "Can we come in?" Their skin is pale, their clothing oddly outdated, and when they lift their heads, a chill runs through your body. Their eyes, they are completely black.
You see, I like this one.
Would you let them in? Of course you do. You'd probably let them in as well. Welcome to the legends of the Black-Eyed Kids, where everything about this episode creeps me out and I refuse to believe it's real because I still need to sleep at night. And to make things just a little worse, while I was writing this episode, my youngest stood next to me making a deep growling noise. I nearly jumped out of my own skin. Having toddlers around while researching creepy kids is not ideal.
Well, the youngest one does have this way of talking to you like, are you sick or do you need a pastor? He's got this little Nicky voice coming out. He's 2 years old. It's the weirdest thing. But anyway, I can imagine him doing that while you're doing this.
It was very creepy and it did not help at all. Okay, when researching the Black-Eyed Children, most accounts state that the first sighting is dated back to 1996.
So it's not that far back. It's what, 30 years?
We'll go, there's more rabbit holes. So that's the one that pops up most. Mm-hmm. So with a chilling story from a journalist in Abilene, Texas, sorry guys, butchering more names, by a reporter named Brian Beffel. He described an encounter in which he was sitting in a car outside a movie theater near a strip center, writing a check for his phone bill. There was a knock on his window. When he looked up, two boys were standing at his car window. He suddenly felt a wave of terror. He was unsure why. He guessed the children were somewhere between the ages of 10 and 14 years old. One of the boys, seemingly the older boy, who was wearing a hoodie, shirt with grey checkered patterns and jeans. He had olive skin and medium brown hair. The second boy was smaller with pale skin and more nervous than the older boy. He also wore a hoodie, but it was light green and his hair appeared orange. They did not look related. Brian rolled his window down just a little bit. The older boy, in a monotone voice, asked if he could give them a ride home. They wanted to watch the movie, but forgot their money. When Brian did not immediately open the door, the boys looked like they were getting agitated. They got more insistent, asking him that they just wanted to go to their house and insisting that they were just two little boys. Brian felt something was wrong with the way they were speaking. They did not speak like little children, nervous and stuttering. It was as if they were adults in children's bodies. Their speech was perfect. Brian asked what movie the kids were planning on seeing, and they replied they wanted to see Mortal Kombat. He looked up at the theater and saw that the movie had already started. It did not make sense because if he took them home and they came back, they would have missed most of the movie already. They saw that Brian was stalling and he felt more and more terrified. They started to get even more insistent, saying that he should let them in. They can't get in without him giving permission. Brian's hand started going towards the car lock as if he was in a trance. Luckily, he snapped out of it and pulled his hand back. When he looked at them again, he realized that their eyes, it was pitch black. They once again insisted that he had to let them in, stating that they did not have a gun, which, how weird is that? But anyway, This, of course, freaked him out even more, and he started his car as they insisted they couldn't get in unless he gave permission, insisting, "Let us in." He quickly put his car in reverse and backed out as fast as he could. He could see the boys in his mirror when he looked up again. They were gone. Nobody was there, as if they just vanished. He felt an inexplicable terror, like he had barely escaped something terrible. So I'm pretty sure I would have died of a heart attack if this happened to me. But anyway.
A lot of interesting things in this story is a lot of detail, which I also like. I like detail. And I did not know that this happened in the Americas as well. This is Texas. I thought this was a European thing again. Like what's a lot of the European folklore. And then what else I see here is why would a little boy say I'm a little boy? It's like one of those things like the way I feel about pyramid schemes or anything like that is, how do you know it's a pyramid scheme? They tell you it's not a pyramid scheme. Exactly that thing is, why would you tell me you are a little boy? It's like,
They're
please
very
trust
creepy.
me. Yeah, it's like people trying to steal your money.
You're worrying about why they say I'm a little boy. Why would they say I don't have a gun?
Yeah, that's the next one I know.
That's the creepiest thing ever.
Well, maybe, let's say I don't have a gun. 1996, that was in Mortal Kombat, when they were showing, it was an interesting time for having guns, I'm guessing.
Yeah, still, the kid's not supposed to tell you, I don't have a gun, let me in.
But then there's the giving permission part. That's vampire-y. That's old school vampire, like,
yes.
What's that
Street
other
Boy.
stupid story you kept on watching? The vampires, the teenage vampire stuff is not Twilight, well, that as well. I think Vampire Diaries?
I don't want to say, I think it's Vampire Diaries you're speaking about, but I can't. Yes, I think it's
In Buffy, were they allowed to walk in? Buffy also was, you couldn't get in.
No, I don't know. I can't remember when.
But anyway,
last
so
I watched Buffy.
this has some vampire and pyramid scheme vibes to it.
Trust you to go to pyramid schemes.
I really like pyramid schemes. I like
You mean
researching
you
pyramid
don't
schemes.
like
I
pyramid schemes, you like
I like
trying to
knowing stuff and knowing
Call
about
anything
people.
pyramid schemes.
Anything is a pyramid scheme.
No, it's not.
If it's a triangle, it's a pyramid scheme.
So anyway, what are black-eyed kids? We will be going through a few stories. I have to say there are a lot of sightings. So one thing you were talking about, you thought was the US or the UK mostly.
America, yeah.
So basically it's between the two of them that they almost try to say it's just here. But if you go down that rabbit hole, it's like, it's everywhere.
So we can have them here.
No.
Okay.
I refuse to believe that. They don't exist. This is just folklore, people making up stories. I
Luckily in our country, you can't walk up to our front door and knock and it will open for you.
And that's what I was
I'm
thinking.
going to go look on the camera and I'll see you go, well, I'm not opening for you. And
That's exactly what I thought. If they're outside my door, something is really wrong, because then they got through a fence and electric fencing and
cameras
outside
and dogs.
gates and in South Africa definitely we have way too much security everywhere for them to end up at your door. But the problem is you can still be in a car outside a movie theater. So that's where my issue lies.
Yeah, but I think that, funny enough, going to the funny part about this,
Especially
and the
if
way
my
we
kids
live
in a car.
is we do get something called car guards, which is kind of unique to our country. We
I
have
don't think
people.
that's
No, it's
unique.
unique. It's an African but South African thing. It went into
course
Africa
it
now.
is.
But so basically, when we go park in the street or somewhere, there will be someone that designated themselves as to be a car guard, which expects you to pay them for babysitting your car. So that means
Okay, but it is per choice. You don't have
you
to
don't
pay.
have
They
to,
can get upset.
But they do tend to stand next to your window like a black-eyed child, looking very creepily and waiting for you with teary-eyed whatever to hand them money for watching my car that has a
Yes,
tracker
but their
and
eyes
an
are
alarm system.
normally
And
beautifully white and whatever color.
yeah, but like I said, it's just funny. So we're used to people standing next to our window and just ignoring them. So yeah,
No, we don't ignore them always. We
not
do
always,
give
but
them-
it does get a lot. But it's like we were used to ignoring
just
people.
when it's not a safe area or something. But anyway, besides that, so basically, you want to know what are they? There are a lot of sightings, so we will not be able to go through all of them, but general consensus of most stories are that children were normally between the age of 6 and 16 years old. They all have black eyes, no irises, no pupils, just this black pit for eyes.
I used to know a girl with something like that.
No, you didn't.
The one girl I went to Europe with. Well, I met in Europe.
Yeah.
She had these. I'm not sure. She's a strange one. She weird family setup. Whatever. It's a friend of a friend's. We had met there, and she had like these black eyes. You can't see you can't see where the inner part of the eye and the outer part. It was instead of like having blue eyes or brown eyes, it was black. There was just these two black things staring at you.
Okay, but I think you mean she has dark eyes. She still had the white, correct?
She still had the white.
Then it's not a black-eyed kid.
Well, she could have been.
She just had dark eyes. You
The
literally
first-
do not see the irises, meaning the entire white part is black. The entire part of your eye. Not just I have dark eyes. It's the entire part of your eyes. I mean, if you think of black South Africans, there's a lot of them where their brown can be so dark that it looks black, but they still have an iris. They still have the white part around it.
Okay.
So no, I do not agree with that. Okay, so basically creepy black eyes. They spontaneously appear, so you don't see where they come from. They just appear. They were strangely formal and overly proper for children. They spoke in monotone voices as if scripted.
What do you mean they were strangely formal and over proper? Dressed or just mannered?
Mannered and their dressing we'll go into depth about later, but the way they're dressed and the manner of speaking is completely just weird. It doesn't make sense the way they speak. If you think of children, they babble and talk. And, oh, can you please give me a lift? I forgot my money at home. So they speak. They're like, we forgot our money at home. Can you please take us to our home so we can watch a movie? A kid won't talk like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, very scripted, never truly going off script and just getting more insistent when you do not let them in. Like, they don't understand why you're not just doing what they're telling you. Their clothing looks homemade and drab. It does not fit well. Some saying it looks almost like Amish clothes. I don't know why they say it. I just saw it on more than one case. They say it almost looks Amish because they normally have oversized clothing that stitched together, if I understand correctly. The older kids, the teenagers, seem to wear hoodies and jeans. So I'm guessing I don't know if it looks drab, but I'm guessing that's not stitched together. Some look outdated, like they were from the wrong era, which obviously that would confuse you. And in some cases, they ask outdated wrong questions. Like they actually, in one of the cases, they asked to use a telegraph. I don't even know what a telegraph is.
Tick, 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 Morse code. Telegraph.
Okay, so that's just obviously if
It's just also a strange thing to ask because you never asked to use a telegraph yourself.
Yeah, so
You would ask someone to send a telegraph for you, so you go to the post office or
obviously
the
they had
telegraph office.
wrong information there. But that's the thing. And there's so many accounts of this. It's so creepy. Anyway, so the question I'm asking now, was Brian's story the first in history? And the answer is no.
Okay.
It does not appear to be the case. According to Astonishing Legends, which is a podcast I listen to as well, who did a very thorough overview of the Black-Eyed Kids, also known as BEK.
Yeah, let's do that from now on because Black-Eyed Kids, it's going to make this podcast really long if we keep on saying Black-Eyed Kids.
So according to them, there was a report in 1982 where there was a sighting in the UK of a BEK. And that's just wrong, UK, BEK. And as an actual manhunt was launched from the disappearance, from this child who disappeared. So the kid appeared.
Someone saw them and then went to the police and then said...
And they did an actual manhunt to find this kid with these solid black eyes.
Okay, so it's not like a kidnapping case or Amber Alert. It was like...
This is the only
unofficial
information they gave. So they literally said there was a sighting of a black-eyed kid, and they went to the police basically, and there was a man. Well, I don't know if they went to the police. Maybe it was just like, did you see that freaky kid? Did you see their eyes? We have to find him because obviously in those times as well, when, well, it's the 80s, but yeah, still
This is
today.
82. That's a long time ago. It was the time before crazy media and stuff.
And if you think about it, most people basically freak out, and then you get these piles of people piling in, and we're going to sort this out. We're going to find them. I'm thinking of the torches
Yeah,
running.
I'm going for the Beauty and the Beast. Pitchfork
Torches
people,
and yes.
the townspeople.
It appears that people want to force people to believe that it is just some sort of mass hysteria, your favorite word. Some sort of mass hysteria in just the USA and the US. If, however, you go further down the rabbit hole, you will notice that there are a lot of stories about black-eyed kids all over the world. Another earlier sighting, in 1974, Frenchmen came across 5 kids that were huddled together. They stopped the car and saw the children were small, with yellow skin and black eyes. It frightened them so much when they approached them that the men drove off. So basically, they put some sort of fear in you or something. You
Well,
feel
obviously,
something is wrong.
If I see anything with black eyes, I'm pretty much not going to be there anymore. Because I think if you go back to like The Exorcist and stuff like that, is that the terrible moment was when the eyes went black.
And yeah, you're saying it's a wonderful story and you hope to meet them.
No, did I say that?
Yes.
It wasn't me, it was the dog. Anyway, no, with this, again, like I did with the previous ghost story, with the apparition of the girl in Vienna, is I like it when facts get together. I like it when things repeat. The moment there's repetition, that means there's a little bit of fact to it. It's just a normal system.
The difference between the ghost of Vienna is they saw a ghost and that's it. This is much more creepy. I can handle the ghost of Vienna. Like I say, that's Casper vibes. I'm fine with that. This is just freaking creepy.
Yeah, like but I do like just the pale yellow skin or skin, the hoodies, and the black eyes. That's 3 big things that kind of. It's not something you think about yourself. That's something you actually had to.
You're forgetting that also the smaller kids also have outdated clothes, wrong era clothes. So there's a lot of information.
Yeah, but have you seen people getting dressed nowadays? I know back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, kids dressed one way and that was it. And it did look odd if you wore older clothes. But I'm guessing we're going to get to something either older or newer now, and we'll know. But I'm guessing those 3 things will pretty much stay throughout the whole discussion now.
We'll get into it. So one story that was also told by Astonishing Legends from a book written by Gary Michael Vasey around the black-eyed kids was about a man who basically just walked up his porch, turned around and locked his door, and immediately after there was a knock. It freaked him out how quickly they were knocking, as no one was behind him when he walked up to the door. He saw 2 boys, one looking early teen and the other around 11. The older boy was the one who knocked. The older boy looked panicked and called out and asked to use his phone. The younger one just looked emotionless. The man felt his hand move to unlock the door, only to realize what he was doing, yanking his hand back. He wanted to help them, but felt afraid of them for some reason. The man had read of the black-eyed kids before, so the children just appearing, asking to use the phone. The unexplained fear he felt immediately made a reflex kick in, and his eyes moved to the boy's eyes. He saw that he was right. Their eyes were pitch black. The older boy seemed to realize that he had noticed their eyes. The man had heard that the kids normally get mad when you notice their eyes, but they did not get mad this time. The kids looked desperate and swore he would not hurt them. They stated that he could trust them. The man, of course, did not trust them and ran to get his shotgun. When he got back to the door with the gun, they were gone. Now here is where it got really interesting for me. The porch was not empty, and instead of the 2 boys, there stood a girl. She had light hair, and her eyes were completely white. She was, however, not trying to get in. She was looking away from him. He, however, did not care. He pointed a gun at her and told her to go away. She assured him that he did not need to point the gun at her and that she did not want to get into his house. He felt some sort of power that forced him to lower his gun, which freaked him out even more than the boys that had just vanished. She asked him about the boys that asked to come into the house. He confirmed that they were there. He was hoping that if he was honest to her, she would leave. She asked how long ago they left, and he confirmed that they just left. She was pleased that they had just left and said they would be close. She assured him that he did not have to worry. They would not be back again. He felt that he believed her, and she left. So what is very interesting here is the white girl. Is it an angel? Because when I think of angels, I think of glowing, beautiful beings and not something that freak you out or scare you because they use their powers on you. It is possible that there are black and white demons. Is it possible? One side good and one side bad. What are the white-eyed kids doing? Are they rounding up the black-eyed kids, or was she just looking for her brothers? Why do the black-eyed kids want to get into the house so badly, and why do they need permission to get in? What is stopping them from just entering your house?
This story is just, listen, this is a more far-fetched one. All the other ones are a bit more interesting than this. This is...
But you've literally heard like one. This is
Well,
the
I
second
heard
one.
one long one. It feels like the said guy that got back to his house was under the influence of something much stronger than just water. I think this does sound very made up. The way the details happen. I don't know. It feels maybe he just wanted something to say because of the black eyes and the white eyes. You're already knowing about black-eyed kids, and then there's a white one. It's more like attention-seeking sort of story
Why?
to tell.
So you believe the journalist, but you don't believe him,
Yes, because a journalist knows how to get details.
or tell
This
better
is
stories.
too detailed. Or tell better stories, yeah, but this is just too detailed. I think I'm not against the black-eyed kids thing. It's just I'm against this story.
No, I don't agree.
I think
it's
this is
very interesting to me that there's a light and a dark, because if you think of anything in life, religion, everything, there's normally a good and a bad side.
Well, in stories there has to be a good and a bad side. That makes
No, in
stories
life
sell.
there's a good and a bad.
Not always. Sometimes something can just be bad. I don't think we'll probably. Is there anyone?
There should be a balance. There should be a good and a bad.
What happens when the kids get inside?
We'll get to that later.
We'll get to so,
Yes,
so there's been somewhere where a kid got
yes,
inside. Okay.
yes, there was
I'm
people that
looking
let
forward.
them in.
Okay.
Okay. So a story that also stood out to me was one that I watched on Stephanie Harlow's YouTube channel about a registered nurse called Sharon who was on her way home with her 8-year-old son strapped in his seat. She quickly stopped at the market and just wanted to grab a few things. She left her son in the car, so I'm hoping this was quite some time back, and just ran in. When she got back to the car just a little bit later, she got in and started the car. As she looked up in the mirrors, she saw another boy sitting next to her son. He was sitting very close to him. When she looked up at the boy, she noticed his eyes. They were completely black. She turned and grabbed her son out of his car seat, or out of the car. She ran back into the convenience store, telling the clerk what happened. The clerk went outside to investigate and found the SUV still running but empty. So this kid just vanished. The clerk asked the woman if she would like to call the police, but she started feeling silly because it was just a kid. She could however not forget the child's angry face as she grabbed her son to run away. She ended up calling her husband to come and get them. She explained everything to him and just did not feel safe enough to drive back in her own car. Tom, her husband, did not really understand but agreed to switch the cars with her. She and her son got in Tom's car and drove home. Tom got in Sharon's car and started gagging. The car apparently had this very foul smell, so bad that he looked around the car to see if there was maybe something spoiled, food, nappy, whatever lying around. When Sharon got home with her son, she asked if he knew the boy. He said no, he didn't know him. She asked what the boy wanted. Her son said that he just wanted to wanted a ride to their home, as in their home, not his own home, their home, because he thought they could play. He then told her that the boy said that he was not allowed to get in the car without his permission. So his son just asked him to get in. So basically the son gave him permission to get in the car. If that was not creepy enough, Sharon was starting to worry because her husband, who should have been just behind them, still wasn't home. Suddenly her phone rang and it was the hospital. They let her know that her husband was in a car accident. He had wrapped a SUV around a telephone pole. When questioning her husband, he could not remember how this happened. A few days after Tom came home from the hospital, their son came down with some sort of sickness that looked like normal colds. He, however, started getting very ill, so they took him to the doctor. The doctor told him he had flu and sent him back home. A few days later, they were back at the doctor's and he was getting sicker from this flu that now started to look like something else, something worse. After a long battle, his son, thank goodness, recovered. So in this case, the black-eyed kid was actually invited in. Nothing happened to Sharon, but if you think about it, she was only in the car for a few seconds. Her husband drove home in the car that had that lingering foul smell in it. Was that the black-eyed kid's doing? Did they cause the accident? Then there is his son, who had this prolonged mysterious illness that they were battling. Was it because the black-eyed kid was invited in and sat next to him?
This is a more believable story. This is more...
Freaking creepy.
It's creepy.
I'm just
It's
thinking of my
creepy.
2 kids trapped inside my car. Not that I'd leave them alone in the car, but I don't know, my gate is open for some reason and the kids are in the car and I'm like, I'm just going to run in and get something. And I get back and there's a kid sitting between them with super black eye. I would freak out.
Yeah, but it's that thing of looking in the mirror and seeing something else. I think that's one of your biggest unknown fears that you don't really know that you have, is looking in the mirror and actually seeing something that's not supposed to be there. Even if the car's supposed to be
Don't
empty.
freak me out even more. I'm having sleepless nights because of this crap you wanted me to research. This is not true. I refuse to believe in any of this. This freaks me out so much.
But this gets back to this being more of a vampire vibes than a ghost vibes, because obviously this creature, this child, can open a door. It can touch things, where a normal ghost, I don't think, can operate normal things.
Yeah.
I'm not the ghost expert, but I'm just thinking...
I'm not sleeping tonight.
Going to the vampire vibes. The kid getting sick, that can actually, it can happen. Who knows? But if it wasn't just let's say a being, let's say this was a homeless child wanting to get somewhere, he might have gotten something from that. It might explain the smell.
Remember, she's a nurse, so she would realize something. She wouldn't freak out for just any cold or take him just for something small. So obviously she knew something was really wrong here.
Well, the smell in the car could also have been her that actually saw in the mirror and then just went...
No, because then her husband would realize that she left.
It could have just like a moment of let it go, a frozen moment there, leave it be. It explains the smell, but
Soiled herself.
So there's why I like the story more is just it's believable in the sense that there is other things it could have been. It could have been a homeless child. It could have been.
But that wouldn't explain why the husband suddenly wrapped a car around a telephone pole.
Accidents happen.
But you'd remember why it happened. I saw a dog. The car slipped. I don't know. You remember?
Maybe
something?
the wife tried to get rid of the husband, and this was just a whole story just to get her husband wrapped around a telephone pole. Maybe she cut the brake lines.
Why did a kid get ill?
Because
obviously the police
the night
would have
before
realized.
she tried killing her husband by giving him couldn't.
Ugh, you're just thinking of
Yeah,
a bunch of nonsense here.
Accidentally drank dad's coffee.
Anyway,
and then
let's
he
move
felt
on.
sick for a couple of weeks.
Another
flu-like
story that
symptoms.
caught my eye was shared on Reddit by Environmental Rip 2975. Pieter-Louis, will you read this one for us?
Me?
Yes.
Oh. Good luck. Hi, so I've known about the black-eyed children creepypasta urban legend, but I may have had an actual encounter with one years ago. This happened in Portland, Oregon, around David Douglas High School. I looked up black-eyed children, and there have actually been a few encounters and reports of them in Portland back in the 1990s.
In the 90s, it doesn't say 1990s, it's 90.
Obviously, it's 1990s.
It says 90s.
What, would go for 1890s?
Okay, fine,
Okay, but the
go
report
on.
says the 90s. I'm going to go for 1990s because in the 1890s there wasn't a high school in Portland.
Okay.
I'm guessing that part, but yeah, anyway, it was a witch town then, or Salem and all that. The encounter happened to me during my high school years, so around 2009 to 2011. I can't remember the exact year, but I want to say I was about 14 at the time. And it was late, around 12 to 1 a.m., maybe a bit later. I believe it was a weekend. My brother and I were up watching South Park, and we heard a knock on our garage window. Then I heard knocking at our window. We had one of the huge windows that covered the front of the house. The curtains were up, but I peeked out the side and saw a woman. She looked very pale, with black hair, and her eyes were very dark. Now, she very well could have been a tweaker, but the next part keeps me out the most. After knocking on the window, she knocks on the door and asks us to let her in. Me being the person that I am, I'm like, hell no. But my brother, who was 10 at the time, walks over to the door and says he's going to let her in. I have to forcibly hold him down until the person leaves. My mom and her boyfriend wake up from hearing me holding down my brother. They ask if someone knocked.
That's what it says, so it's
If
fine.
we heard someone, I'm guessing there's a word missing there. Ask if we heard someone knocked on the door and tell them what just happened. One thing I heard is that the black-eyed children encounters is sometimes they will force people to do things with no recollection of them doing it. Why I bring this up is that I asked my brother if he can remember the lady, the knocking or trying to let her in, and he always tells me he does not. To this day, the experience keeps me out since I ever first heard of the black-eyed children. Phenomenal, because everyone who's had a claim about them said exactly what I experienced.
So, a few things here. One, this was a girl, or rather a woman, and not the boys we mostly read about. Then the fact that he physically had to restrain his brother to ensure that he did not open the door. Was there some sort of power over him, or why did he want to just open the door that badly?
Yeah, it does sound like what you call lean vampire influence again.
Yes, this random influence.
I've never heard of it going through a
I
door.
must say, you were the one that said vampires don't exist, blah blah, and you're sticking to vampires while believing in these creepy kids.
I'm trying to make this justifiable for myself, because this is, again, interesting. Repetition means there's something to it.
There's a lot of people who are going to tell you they've seen vampires.
Just back to him again, is he knew about black-eyed kids before
Yes.
this happened.
And he's talking about a lady, not a kid.
I'm trying to think of, he says he knows about black-eyed kids now. Did he know about it beforehand?
And so the last thing also notable here for me is I remember things from back when I was like 3 years old. If his brother was 10, why can't he remember anything? That creeps me out.
That is interesting, with amnesia and all that. The story is just a little less believable, because I said you already knew about black-eyed children.
Just because someone knows about something doesn't mean they can live it.
But then you see it in something. You can...
No. Creepy black eyes with no irises, no. There's no way. White of an eye stands out. If there's no white, something is up. Just no.
And why does all this always have to happen at night? Why can't we have daytime vampire people? Black-eyed
No,
people?
I don't think that all of this actually happens
Is it?
there. I don't.
Because this is midnight again.
Wait, no, it isn't the dark normally. No.
Yeah, just
I
imagine
can't remember.
if all of this happens during daytime, would it be as scary?
Yes.
And the other thing is, it's amazing how all of this stopped happening the moment we started getting CCTV.
No, it's not all the night, because if you think of Sharon the nurse,
it wasn't a day.
she got a
But it
kid
doesn't
from-
actually say if it was day or night.
It says
Remember,
8.
in some countries like believe this was America, or she was in America, is the convenience stores are open 24/7.
Yeah, but
You
it said
can
at
go to the store at 10.
8. It said at 8. I just want to double check there. I'm not sure if it's... No, it's an 8-year-old.
Yeah, you don't have a time on that one. But still, it's like also...
She was on her way home, so it could possibly be dark. Okay.
And also what time of the year it is and what part of the world. Sometimes it's dark at 3 o'clock already, or sometimes it's still light at midnight, depending where you are. But funny how all these things stopped the moment we started getting CCTV and ring cams and stuff at the
No, I don't
house.
think it stopped. I just think they
They got smarter. They're looking for
Yes.
cameras now.
And remember, well, if you look later on and so on, I'll get to that part a bit later, but it's not that you always see their eyes first. So I'm sure they know to put their hoodie on and hide their eyes, and they can still be there, and you can't prove it on camera. They're not going to look at the camera. So you won't necessarily know. It'll just look like a weird kid. So anyway, I want to discuss one more occasion where they let the black-eyed kids in, and then I want to go down another rabbit hole with you guys. But this podcast is getting a little bit long, so I think we'll have to do that in a part 2. But don't worry, we won't leave you hanging long. We'll post part 2 on Monday. So until next time, guys, stay curious and keep the legends alive. Bye.
Bye.